Shall we begin?
So it begins.
And now it begins.
So it begins.
And so it begins.
Shall we begin?
It begins.
So, shall we begin?
So, it begins.
Shall I begin? Shall we begin? Shall we begin? Shall we begin?
We've entered into the dark times, the times of the dark era.
Something, dark side.
Yes, this can apply to both worlds. And then Bane will come in and destroy everything. He shall be the new ruler of Middle Earth and the galaxy.
I like how you used the graphic novel picture for Star Wars.
Yeah, I just picked up the Star Wars original trilogy.
That's a pretty image. It's just
Star Wars original trilogy. That was one of the first images to come up, and I'm like, that encapsulates it very good. There's a lot of freaking, ones with the sequel trilogy on there coming up for the images for the freaking thing, and I'm like, nope, get off of there. Don't need the little orange chick. I don't need Rey on there. No, thank you. Don't need Kylo on there. The OT will do. That will work. But yeah, so today, Angus and I have been talking about Lord of the Rings a little bit lately and talking about Star Wars. So we felt like, we might talk a little bit about both tonight. We haven't actually talked that much about Lord of the Rings ourselves on streams and stuff. So that's a little more fun one to dive into a little bit more. And Star Wars, I will probably talk about some stuff with it, but more so comparing which ones have a better impact in which way or whatnot. So, hell yeah. We got Dr. Alex in the chat. What's up, Alex?
What's up?
What's up, broski? I popped in to a few of your streams or your premieres here and there. I haven't commented too much because I'm usually posting and doing other stuff for the Fandom Collective whenever I see you go live, but I do pop in and see what's up. So
he's probably the one guy that makes me feel bad about hating Doctor Who because
he puts so much into knowing it.
And it's like, okay, like I wish I had that angle because I fucking hate that show.
Oh no. No.
I wish I wasn't already scarred against it. Otherwise, it's like, I guess I'd invest with it. But
right, you turned to the dark side, Angus. How dare you? How dare you indeed? See, that'd be interesting. I've seen. Remember Bandit Incorporated? A long time ago.
Oh yeah, I
remember that. Well, he made a series of videos where he was like taking characters and putting them into different worlds essentially. So he took he would do like a what if type of scenario, I guess, where he takes Iron Man and then plops him into Game of Thrones essentially. And it's like, would he survive? What would he be able to do with that kind of a thing? And then it's like, take a character from one world and put him onto another. And that'd be interesting to swap a character or two from Lord of the Rings and Star Wars. Like, have Luke and Aragorn swap spots. It's like, what?
I mean, they're both kind of, one knows about his legacy and is kind of evading it. The other one is clueless and kind of been lied to and sheltered. Yeah, they're both kind of chosen ones in a way. I mean, he's not, Luke isn't like Anakin where he's like told, hey, you're the Messiah.
Oh yeah, he's discovering his stuff and what he's capable of doing. And even when he's told what to do to achieve his destiny, he doesn't want to do it that way. So
yeah, and Aragorn is aware of his legacy, but he's also, and that entails the failure of his legacy he's inheriting. And so he's reluctant because he doesn't want to make those same mistakes. And so it's a little bit of wiggle room, a little nuance there between them. But yeah, they're definitely match up a lot. I don't think you get much difference, especially Aragorn is trained though, and versus Luke. So he wouldn't probably have, if you put him in stars, he wouldn't have failures as much as Luke does. Luke's always jumping the gun and getting his ass saved by someone else. Aragorn, what's fun, okay, with Aragorn, so I've been watching Lord of the Rings, I say for 15-ish years because, my mom was very wacko Christian or detective. So like just the imagery of Lord of the Rings was like demonic with like the Balrog and shit. So it was roped into like Harry Potter with the whole Christian talk about it back then. So that was forbidden until I don't even know how I came across owning Lord of the Rings movies. I don't remember how I got them.
It just plopped on your desk, Santa Claus dropped it off.
Yeah,
on the porch,
so
naturally.
it was. I saw Two Towers when it came out on DVD when I went to a church camp. There's a lot of other kids that were more exposed as in Oklahoma City versus my little town. So it was like, holy shit. I didn't know the first movie, but I'm like, this is awesome. Helm's Deep and shit. Oh, I loved it. All the evil orcs and Uruk-hai. I was digging it. And what's funny is I never noticed until 15 years later, like Aragorn has that wild horse that he's like, talks in Elvish to calm him down. He lets him go. He's like, yeah, just let him go. He's seen too much. Let him live in peace now. And that's the horse that saves him. I thought that was just his horse.
Yeah, no, that was something I caught on my last run through watching as well. I was like, wait a second. I was like, is that just a random horse? Was he riding a horse? No, he got knocked off his horse. Was that the same one? And nope, it was the one that he let go. Yeah, that's like, yeah, he's seen too much war.
That paid off.
And yeah, well, I in a way, I say it's convenient. In a way, I also say it. I don't know. Like horses are very interesting creatures in that.
They're pretty
aspect.
smart.
Like,
yeah.
well, and you consider like especially when they charge against the elephants. It's like, dude, like I'm surprised the horses aren't all going, fuck that, I'm out. let's go the other way. We're not going toward that. Like they're willing to charge into death essentially with a human. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if that many people appreciate that about horses. Like, they'll pretty much willingly kill themselves in service for humans. I don't know how much they understand of what they're doing.
Yeah, there's a weird thing about horses. I've only rode one once. I've petted a few growing up around like my house stuff. Neighbor had one I'd pet when he come by the fence, but watching Yellowstone, I assume there's like truth, it's a fictional show. I figure there's some like truth to like the reality of stuff, and they talk about how like essentially later in the show you learn that like he's a widower, the main character, and his wife died because his daughter, when they were young, they're out in the wilderness on their land. She was never like good on a horse. She's always like scared, and so she like spooked the horse, and that got her mom killed over time. Like the horse freaked out, fell on her, and she died. And they talk later about like riding horses, like it's sensing you. It's scared when you're scared. You got to be calm, and it'll be calm. And it's like, I think that's probably true for the most part. There might be some outside environment stuff that will affect it too, but that's also a bad thing though if you can calm a horse, because you could make it charge to an elephant like in the Greek times fighting with Alexander going east versus a donkey. You don't ride horses in the Grand Canyon, you ride a donkey, and it's for a reason. So there's like a pro and con to a horse in that respect.
Yeah, but I don't know, I do wonder about that. I mean, that's a nice detail. Yeah, lets the horse go, and that's the horse that ends up kind of saving him. And in my head, it's like, well, how would it know its way back? It's like, I don't know. Again, it came from, like, I don't know. It's
the horse lords. It's in
I don't know.
Rohan.
Well, yeah, it's the horses are of the land, and it's seen a lot of battles. So it, could have been around this land, and the horses know their way around somehow. I think they even in the Fellowship, like when Sam has his pony that he's letting go when they go to Moria.
Goodbye, Bill.
He was like, it knows the way home. And it was just like, I don't. It is interesting, like how animals can do that. I don't know, like that's not a topic that I talk about that often, but it's like,
well, I mean, they train pigeons. Like, how do you train a pigeon to fly 50 miles to another city to deliver a message?
I do wonder that. Like, I really wonder, like when they first ever did that, like when they first tried to conceive of doing that, like let's strap a message to a pigeon and they'll fly over to wherever, and then they'll put one back and they'll fly. It's like, how do you even know it'll ever get to where you're trying to get it to go to? Like, how is that possible? Like
in Noah's Ark, you and me, of course, think it's a fake story, but the whole idea of like, send a pigeon out or dove, whatever, and if it doesn't come back, it found land. So that's like a good sign. And it's like, I guess there's truth to that. Like just the animals, it's believable story, because that element at least, because that's a reality.
Yeah, I mean, I wish that they'd make a movie that like kind of explores how they train some animals like that, like pigeons, to be able to do that. Like that'd be interesting. Or ravens, if that's the same. Is that just a Game of Thrones thing, or is that something in history too?
No, I'm sure they use different available creatures.
I thought like falcons might have been used as well, and owls. But I don't know if that was Harry Potter either. I don't know if that's actually true like anymore.
Well, especially like you think about like if I was going to do a parallel of what Winterfell is, that'd be like Fort Drum, but like almost all the time cold. So, or like Canada. So, even in the summer, it's pretty cold. So, yeah, I think ravens live up in the cold. They're always fucking with eagles, finding dead stuff. So,
yeah, that's cool. What's up, Master of the TDS? How's it going, man? How's it going? I've been.
Wait, so what is TDS? I always see this guy on Twitter, but I don't know what TDS.
So hold on. So
Trump derangement syndrome.
Well, I don't remember TDS. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did you? I think that you had TDS as something completely unrelated to Trump derangement syndrome, but people kept on assuming that's what it was, and then you just kind of kept it. I don't remember if that's what that was. So I think somebody told me that. I forget. It's exactly like, what the story is.
Because then it's like you're wondering, seeing that, like, wait, is this someone that like is trying to like be self-aware of being a libtard and like, yeah, I'm the master of this. I fucking hate Trump so ridiculously.
It's hard. I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, good to see you. Good to see you. He's been doing some new stuff lately and breaking down some characters and based on the like for new stuff. And it's like, okay, it's going pretty good. Going good. But yeah, so Lord of the Rings. So Angus and I are kind of going back and forth on this. So like, you know, I think I do agree with him at the end of the day. If we're talking about which franchise is more important, I think that Star Wars is a more important franchise than Lord of the Rings because it got the majority of people of all ages and like all aspects of anything to get into it. As for Lord of the Rings, though I think it's got one of the most filmmaking achievements ever. It's got like the best, you know, overall, like damn. And they've made it within like what, 3 years, 4 years? They filmed it.
I think they filmed it over 2 years straight.
Yeah, that's insane. With that amount of work, I would have thought it would have taken longer. I mean, you see all the delays that happen these days for modern ones that are not even a fraction of the talent. Like, oh my god, you know what I mean? Like you'd think that I don't know. Like it's just baffling when I look at, you know, how many things are delayed these days with the amount of advances in technology as well. And Lord of the Rings, they did 2 years to do such a masterpiece. Like you'd think that, and not just one masterpiece, 3 movies back to back of a huge old masterpiece. It's insane. Yeah, TDS created it 6 years ago, and it was based on a card game. My favorite ones, Total Defense Shogun. Card game. He means Yu-Gi-Oh. Yes, that's a Yu-Gi-Oh reference. Total Defense Shogun. Okay, yeah. And he decided that master of the Total Defense Shogun, I would become master of TDS. Yeah, that was a good move. That was a good move. I think it's more memorable that way. Yeah, it's talking about Yu-Gi-Oh card there. But yeah, so anyway, so with Star Wars and Lord of the Rings here, would you say like what one do you think that I was going to say which one do you think kids would attach themselves to more, but I think it's very obvious. Very obviously Star Wars. That's another thing that gives Star Wars a point in this type of conversation. It's like
what's cooler than a sword for
if you're going to
lightsaber?
Well, no, I'd say I think it's see both as being cool, but I feel like Lord of the Rings is way too slow for just like for the average kid to want to sit through and watch and enjoy it. As to where Star Wars is like, you could get through a lot of that with, you know, any slow bits you could get through and you'll be fine. Like, you know, they'll be wanting to still see what's happening. As to Lord of the Rings, I don't know. I feel like when I was a kid, I remember skipping to like the Helm's Deep battle and the battle with the Wogs and stuff. Like I skipped a lot of character stuff all the time when I was a kid. And same with Star Wars, actually. Like I'd go to the gladiator battle and the trials and all that and fighting Dooku and like I'd skip around to all this stuff. But as an adult, I'm like, you know, I do like seeing a lot of the scenes that are in between. I need all the nuggets. If in fact I want more nuggets, give me more scenes where they're talking. Give me more scenes where they're just doing stuff and figuring things out, sitting around to make that even better. Like that's what I want to see.
It's like you should all sit down and agree on something. It's like well, maybe we should have someone to make them agree.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what do you think? What do you think that Lord of the Rings has above Star Wars, other than its, I guess film achievements? Which I guess that's even debatable. Like I feel like Lord of the Rings is better in that field, but Star Wars still came up with a lot of new technologies and inventions as well during their process.
I would say, here's how I put it. All right. So Star Wars, just date-wise, comes after Lord of the Rings and after the influence of Joseph Campbell.
Well, when you say Lord of the Rings, you mean the books, though?
Yeah. Well, also around that time, I'm not sure exactly when the release, but I want to say the cartoon adaptations of
there's more than one cartoon. There's more
Lord
than
of the
one
Rings,
cartoon.
Return of the King, and The Hobbit all came out in like I want to say around Star Wars time. So you've had like an attempt of film adaptation as well for Lord of the Rings, but yeah, Lord of the Rings was written before anyone really hit the nail on the head with the monomyth and the hero's journey. It's been done in lots of stories, clearly, but I don't think anyone really encapsulated like this is like the essence of all these stories, like Campbell did. That's what Lucas has over Lord of the Rings as like an idea, encapsulating it, or that was like someone just quintessentially like nailed it, and so he could go forward from that. Where it's like, all right, I got everything encapsulated. It's not just like I'm like looking through it with all these narratives. But Star Wars did all the heavy lifting for live action, especially with the original trilogy, the first film, all the obstacles to make such a crazy fantasy real and believable. Even with, I'm talking about pre-special edition, which I love special editions, but pre that with like just how it was raw in the 70s and 80s. Without that, and then the prequels in 99 for Phantom Menace, Lord of the Rings, I don't think was ready to be adapted to the full scope it is with the trilogy that they made.
I can see that, but
at the same time, though, kind of like Game of Thrones as well, Star Wars, in a smaller degree than Game of Thrones, benefits from Lord of the Rings being like the first huge epic template. Lord of the Rings is simplistic as far as it's like black and white storytelling. It's very easy. There's no real gray characters. Saruman, kind of, because ultimately he's like buying into the idea of like, we can't defeat Sauron, let's join him and like
he could have killed Gandalf. He could have killed Gandalf many times and chose not to. He tried to convince him to join. I think in a way, I think he would have been fine not killing everyone as well, but he assumes, they're all gonna fight me, so fuck it, I'll kill him.
Yeah, like Sauron in the book, he's a white wizard, but like Gandalf notices in the light his like cloak.
I mean, Saruman,
yeah, kind of his cloak kind of shimmers like a rainbow, and that's supposed to be like a kind of symbolism that he's like trying to like all knowledge. Gandalf, I think, is probably the most Tolkien character as far as like him writing his own thoughts and worldviews through a character that he's like very weary of too much knowledge, of too much progress, because one of the many subtextual elements of Lord of the Rings is like this weariness of technology and stuff. That's why you see this kind of like mass production, military industrial complex narrative through visuals of like the Uruk-hai and their weapons manufacturing. It's very like Soviet. The Soviets made great technology during World War II and after, but it was all just like, it was never for comfort. It was all about like, just I need this to do this, without thinking of the person inside the equipment. Like AK-47s are a great weapon, but they like burn up really hot.
Yeah, true.
So there's always like drawbacks to Soviet weapons, despite their efficiency for the most part. and you see that in Star Wars, where especially get the full saga of the 6 films, where it's like their technology is like the future in the original trilogy, but it's like mass produced. It's not as good as like the Clone Wars, because you had the Jedi as generals helping them, and they didn't account for that. And then they want to cut corners in certain ways, so they like occupy shit, but then they like grow lax in their quality. So they go from like a kind of Spartan regime to Persian mass production, just a swarm. And so you kind of see like the benefit of having Tolkien do something beforehand, where it's like black and white, and then because you have this simpler template, now you can start to make a new one that's more nuanced, with gray characters, with like seeing that, well, this guy's bad, but there's a reason he went bad, or and so that's where you get like, well, which one's better? It's like, well, this one's beforehand, and no one's really done this before, and Lucas probably couldn't do it without this template beforehand. So that's where I get like, I don't know.
Well,
which one's really better.
This is where I feel like we'd have to judge it more simply than something like that, because I agree that each one could be a cause and effect to boost the other one up, essentially. But just at base value, just comparison of what was accomplished at the time, in general, that I feel like Lord of the Rings would come out in that category for what it was able to do, even if there was some influence of each other or something. Same like with, if we were going to say Game of Thrones compared to Lord of the Rings, it's like, Lord of the Rings may have been a stepping stone, but I'm not of the fan of like, I don't know, saying that like, because something came first, that therefore it's better, even though we can give it a lot of credit for its achievements. Like, I use this type of thing with like Power Rangers. I know you hate whenever I bring that up, but it's like, people always go, well, Mighty Morphin's the best one. And it's like, no. And they're like, no, but it paved the way for everything else. I don't care. It's not the best. It's literally not the best. It got people into it. It got people used to it. They were getting used to how to do the footage and mash it together, but it's trash. It's like, it's, compared to others.
Kind of like with different genres, it's like a gangster film. I would say The Departed is probably the last true gangster film. It's like a modern gangster film. And so it doesn't have all those same tropes and recognizable kind of like, mobster stuff. But it's better than Godfather, in my opinion. But where would it be without something like The Godfather?
Yeah, so. There's always a credit, like a nod of respect that it's because of you're able to stand on their shoulders and go higher, essentially. But yeah. But I just say, regardless, that's when we're looking at things objectively over time, I feel like one will still be out over the other, and then we can go into more specifics as to why which ones are better or worse. But like another reason why I think Star Wars has some edges up on Lord of the Rings, this is in a smaller aspect. I think what I'm about to say is like Lord of the Rings has more of these different things that make it put it above Star Wars, but like the father-son family dynamics in Star Wars is put together like more easy for kids and adult, like anybody can understand what's going on with that, as to where like in Lord of the Rings, I don't think there's any father-son type of thing, but there's other relations of like brothers and in times of war and what are you going to do, your friendship and stuff. Like there's more of that on display in Lord of the Rings.
There's Lord of the Rings,
Faramir and Aragorn and Boromir and everybody. There's all these Gimli and Legolas. Like they're all these different facets of brotherhood.
Yeah, Star Wars, they both have this overarching like good and evil question. Tolkien is kind of, especially being Catholic and very devout in his worldview, that just seeps into his writings. He's writing this kind of good triumphs in the end, biblical kind of storytelling, epic worldview. And there's also like his experience in the trenches and stuff, World War I. He's this it's a very like, we were just talking about this earlier, that like you see a lot of like his perceptions of war and stuff, and the reason to fight and go on and stuff. It's hammered throughout the books and the movies. That's a real element that comes through. So those are like the two big things I would pull from Lord of the Rings. Star Wars is like the base of this cosmic balance, kind of this Taoist view of good and evil, and constant conflict, and also the paternal father-son dynamic, sins of the father storytelling. And so you kind of got two different, like, you first got a very Western Christian epic, and then you got like a kind of Taoist Eastern philosophy inspired cosmic fight. Because like Star Wars is all about balance, even though it doesn't necessarily convey that well, because it always ends up with like, yeah, the good guys won,
Right.
So it kind of doubles back on itself with that Western perspective and storytelling. But yeah, so it's like, for that, I think they're kind of just equal and opposite. They're telling two different kind of perceptions of the world and of morality.
Yeah, but they do have a similar, this side is good, this side is evil.
Yeah. I was thinking about that. So I was watching, like part of it was me like, hey, I got this funny gag we could do for a video. Where it's like totally not an aspect to think about with these films, but it's funny to like bring that in.
Yes.
But I was thinking it's like for a couple scenes in extended edition for sure, because I don't know if they're all in the theatrical, but when they take Isengard and they're just like slaughtering, it's like, all right, like for one of these goblins of I guess they're on a darker end of the spectrum of species, so they're more easily manipulated to be with Sauron and Saruman, but they're kind of like innocent bystanders in a way, especially people like just working in the factory in Isengard. They're just making equipment, It's like kind of like the whole like Clerks. So it's like, well, think about all the innocent people that died on the Death Star, what a genocide. It's I kind of had that perception. It's like, wow, that's really fucked up. They're just like massacring this factory,
but
then,
they
like,
can also, but in the moment of the Isengard though, it's like, well, they massacred all the trees, of which are the Treebeard's friends.
Well, that could get into like some PETA shit where it's like, oh, they massacred all these cows and or that's like Jains. Jains are a really ridiculous Eastern religion where it's like they don't eat potatoes because pulling them out of the ground might disturb like microorganisms. So they're like really extreme with their like life preservation philosophy. So yeah, you could get into some wacky stuff like that with that kind of take. But yeah, and the other scene was like when the Uruk-hai are retreating in their defeat from Helm's Deep, and like all the trees just slaughter them. It's like, I don't know. Like you're supposed to like take that as like, yeah, they slaughter. And it's like they're retreating. Like you're supposed to let the enemy evade if they're in defeat and they retreat, and you just slaughter them. It's like stabbing people in the back. It's kind of, is that moral? Is that good?
I mean, in a way, but I mean, they do show. I think that they try to show that the Uruk-hai don't give a fuck about them trees, because when they're carrying Merry and Pippin, they're getting a fire going and chopping down trees already immediately. It's just like, oh man, and the ones at Isengard already was doing that to the trees around there, and they're supposed to apparently have personalities. In the extended, you see the not Ents but trees kill and attack things. It's like, oh, they can do that. Or there's the one that like swallowed that, like, took a hold of Merry and Pippin. It's like a tree did that. Like, what?
Like, I get it's war and it's this whole like black and white good and evil stuff, but then at the same time it's like, well, these guys are just working. They need fuel for the fires to make their equipment. They don't see trees as like some noble living entity. And at the same time, like you go to Rohan, it's like you got a hall that's like, a stone foundation, but like it's a lot of like thatched roofing. Like a lot of trees die to make all these places, like,
yeah,
where's
not every
the line?
well, it seems like only trees in the Fangorn forest are alive. Like the rest, like as far as like with they can move and stuff or talk, as to a tree from the Shire or somewhere, I don't think they're alive at all. They're just regular
but if the
tree.
Ents came over there, then like maybe they would be. So it's like, where does it stop?
That is something interesting. I think in the books that like there's supposed to be more of a history with the Ents, and that what we see in Lord of the Rings and Middle Earth is like, this is the remnants of that. A lot of what we see in Lord of the Rings is like the remnants of the old world or something. Like it's, there used to be thriving this and thriving that, but now there's only remnants of this and that. Like Shelob is like one of the offspring of some bigger spider thing, and it's now the biggest
Fuck
one
that.
now,
Fuck that.
and
God
there's
damn
all
it,
these
I
other
hate spiders.
there's all these other factors and creatures and wizards and other stuff, and it's like, okay, so those are there in that aspect. And apparently hobbits weren't around before in the Shire and all that, so apparently their world was flat at one point and then became round later. I don't know. I don't know how that works in their world with that stuff, and how there's only like 3 ages so far, or 4. I have no idea how far he writes into stuff beyond Lord of the Rings with that. That's an interesting concept with it, though. Like, how far would this world be able to go, essentially? Like, if he were able to keep on writing for another 10 years or so, like, how much more could he fill in?
Yeah, it's a fun, interesting world. But
Well, like the elves, like where they go on the boat, it's like, are they literally going to like a
they
real?
went west to what I think it's Valar or something like that. I think.
Is that supposed to be a magical place or just extra land that nobody's occupied yet?
Yeah.
They make it seem like it's in like an ethereal plane, like, oh, it's gonna be, it's like heaven almost, but it's.
I can't wait till, if everything's just horrible, like people are bracing for Rings of Power. It's like they give a backstory. It's like, oh yeah, the elves, they got this like magical land to like escape to get away from men and their conflicts, and it's like ends up. Well, they displaced the First Nations people of Valar or wherever they go. Like,
right. They had a huge genocide first, real quick, and then now it's peaceful. See,
now it's peaceful
after we cleaned all the blood up. Now it looks nice and cozy.
And all these indigenous weirdos.
Yeah, and apparently it's like we see a lot of the world in Lord of the Rings, but apparently that's like not even close to a huge part of it. It's like, we didn't even see any other dwarves, essentially. Like the Mines of Moria would have been where we'd see them, but you see in the Hobbit, there's different locations they go to as well, and it would have been interesting to see extra dwarves in this series a little bit, like attempt to do something. But I think having our one dwarf is just fine.
I'm gonna laugh at Peter Dinklage in Rings of Power.
I know, that'd be hilarious.
He's a dwarf. They got the midget from Game of Thrones. Yes.
Or they have him play the only deformed elf that's short or something. Like he had a birth, like one of the elves fucked a dwarf, and now they have a dwarven elf.
He's one of the first like pre-Urukai fuck ups, like the test runs, the prototypes. Like, damn it! Like, I'm trying to make my mighty Urukai, and I got this freak dwarf elf.
He's the nicest. He's the nicest one ever, but everybody treats him like shit because he's ugly and nasty. And then he becomes He becomes the first little evil demon thing.
Like, fuck, I drink and I know things.
Apparently, like the Balrog, also there's apparently like a bunch of them, and they're like riding on some other type of animal things. And that'd been cool. The Balrog was like one of the last of its things. I'm telling you, dude, there's a lot of YouTube channels that like go into because like they've read the Silmarillion and all the other books based on the world and stuff, and there's some imagery
and stuff.
There's some imagery. I don't know who made the pictures or whatever with some of the art. Or if Tolkien had people try to draw them to be a visual for it, but there's a lot of them that do that, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. There's even some that do kind of what if scenarios with like, what if Gandalf took the ring, what happened, and it's like, I think in some ways they're okay, but could be better with it. But it's interesting because you do think that like, what would if Gandalf took the ring, would he be more powerful, or would he just be more corrupt and more hardcore with what he's trying to do? Like, I don't know. Very tough one. What's up, Sherry? Are you frozen or just thinking or what?
Me? Oh
yeah, because you weren't responding.
No, I'm reading a Balrog wiki thing. It says Balrog's also known as the Valarakar or Maiar that were seduced and corrupted by Melkor. I think Melkor was like a pre-Sauron guy.
Yeah, Malakor or whatever. Yeah, he was the
Melkor.
Yeah, he was like his daddy or something, or I don't know, something like that. He was the old big bad of the Second Age. I thought you were gonna read more. So
I'm just kind of reading myself, trying to like find any like, okay, like this is what sucks. Like I remember I watched a video from some Lord of the Rings channel where it's like I was looking up something about like the wizards, and there's like apparently a couple of blue wizards or some shit. And
Yeah, there's 5 wizards total, and Saruman mentions that in the extended version of the movie. He's like, oh, shut up, Gandalf, with blah 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 blah. You're gonna there's something with about the 5 wizards of whatever, blah, blah. And then he shoots the fire at him.
Radagast the Brown, which you see in The Hobbit, and then which I really hate the order Radagast because it seems like Radagast is a like he's of the earth. He's like I guess a lower wizard, but
you see, so the ranking is Saruman, Gandalf, Radagast, and then the 2 blue wizards essentially. And then when Saruman goes evil, and then Gandalf dies, he's resurrected as what Saruman was supposed to be essentially, as like the White Wizard. And I don't know what else happens with the other ones, but this is one of the things. So with Radagast. So I don't remember, or I don't. This is a long time since I saw a video on this. I don't remember exactly if this was something that's more confirmed or if this was just a theory that Radagast plays a role in Lord of the Rings that we don't directly see him in, but we see the result of, where like Saruman basically has Radagast in his control, sort of like he's sort of on his team, but he also is like playing both sides here. Like he's helping Saruman, but he's also trying to help Gandalf where he can. So like the crows that go and like try to see them in the Fellowship, like those would be by Radagast or something, like controlled by him. And then like the moth that you see flies around Gandalf, and then the eagles come, something with Radagast maybe. And then like any other time there's animal intervention or being used like that, other than the wogs and trolls and shit. You know what I mean? Like the regular animals. It's like supposed to be something with Radagast, but I don't remember if that was just a theory somebody had, or if that was like actual information that's supposed to be in the story that I just don't remember, or from commentary.
Yeah, there's so much depth to like dig into this world where it's like fuck.
And it's like maybe because you wonder he had crows, just go see, and then the crows come back and he's like, oh haha, I see now. It's just like, what? you know?
Yeah, I didn't think much of it. Like it made sense to me. It's like he's a wizard. They're kind of supernatural.
Well, no. I'm fine. I'm just saying, like, if Radagast was involved in the thing, is what I was saying.
I don't have anything to say about that.
Okay.
Trying to think some other like relating Star Wars to it, or I think they just kind of go hand in hand.
Well, it's like corruption, I think, is a easy one to pull as well. Like, the corruption of the ring, the corruption of the dark side of the Force. Star Wars and Lord of the Rings, it's don't be too evil now, you hear? Don't be too evil now. And they both have that very black and white sense of, these guys are really bad, and then these guys are pretty darn good. Like you don't want to see a stormtrooper being nice or nothing. You don't want to see an orc being nice, but they do have moments where they are humanish. Like, the orc's like, yeah, we just want some meat. We're hungry. Which that was actually something that was, when we were talking earlier, like makes me think that they're not as much like they're working for Sauron, but they don't care as much about Sauron, the orcs. Like, they're strictly told to return the hobbits alive and unspoiled. But they were like, let's have their legs. They don't need those. Who cares? Like, and that one orc was willing to kill the hobbits to eat them. And it's like the Uruk-hai were like strictly against doing that because that's directly against what Sauron wanted.
To carry an
kind of
elvish weapon.
it kind of, it just makes me think that, so the Uruk-hai are more hardcore. Sauron, yeah, we hardcore, yeah. And then the orcs are like, well, we're here, but we just rather go eat and chill, like, and not have to worry about this.
You think they would just send some scouts out to like go hunting in the woods, especially since they're like
especially since they're in the woods now, yeah. You'd think, but then again, it's like the whole world is weird with how much life form. Like, I don't know how much life is in there really. Like, there's so much open plains and open fields and so many mountains, and it's like, Jesus Christ, like that would suck to go there. Hey, I want to go to that town. Oh, it's going to be another 3 or 4 days ride on a horse, or you know, their 10-day walk. Like, Jesus.
Oh
That
yeah.
sucked. That
Especially
really
like
sucked.
Gollum. You know, Gollum starts tracking them way back in like around Moria and stuff, and then like, you know, he's on their trail the whole time, and it's like, what was he doing in between? Like, he's got to eat, you know, like.
Well, he seems to always like catch fish or bugs or something.
Yeah,
probably.
no, he's adept to that, but especially that he hates the light, so that's gotta fuck with him.
Well, that was actually something I wondered about the trolls for a little while. I was like, you know, hey, you know, they keep on implying in The Hobbit that the trolls turn to stone when they're in sunlight. But then I remembered, like, Gandalf's talking to Pippin, and he says, or, I don't know if he's talking to Pippin or somebody else, but he's saying, you know, Sauron's darkened the sky, essentially. Like, it's, you know, wherever the trolls are, it's not very bright. It's cloudy. It's very cloudy overhead. It's not sunshine.
So.
The sun isn't shining through when they're marching. It's darker. It's still daylight.
Isn't the sun out though at Minas Tirith?
I'd say it's daytime, but it's not sunlight as much.
Yeah, I guess that's like a plot coverage where it's like, well, Sauron like darkens the sky. Ooh, he doesn't have direct sunlight.
Yeah, which is like, I'd still say, well, sunlight still gets through. It's just not as strong. It's
Yeah,
diminished.
you can still, even if it's cloudy, you can still get skin cancer. Like,
yeah, it's like, yeah, so I don't know. They should at least be going, ow, or be covered or something, you know, like in cloaks.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I don't know.
I thought that was
just like that's a nitpick. But yeah, no, I never even thought about that.
That's just
like,
an observation. That's just an observation. I'm not saying that's a flaw. I'm just saying that's not an observation.
Well, if it is, it's so minor. But it's like, wait a minute, trolls turn to stone in the sun, but then like,
but no, I'm saying they address it in the movie. Like they address that.
There's so much detail. Like that one just has escaped me this whole time.
Yeah, I forget where it is, honestly, where they say that, but the way it sounded like, you know, was even like orcs, because one of the elves, when they're in what's its face after Gandalf was dead, when they're in the elf place with Galadriel and them, one of the elf guys says, you know, oh, there's, you know, a force that's tracking you even through daylight, and the implication sounded like orcs
they shouldn't be able to.
Well, saying Uruk-hai can, but like that orcs and goblins can't or something, that they're more like the sunlight's not good on them. So I don't know which species they're specifically referring to or what, or yeah, or if these are an anomaly.
I took that as like the power of Sauron's growing, so his forces are like acting out of the ordinary because of that, but not that was like absolute limitation to them. Like they're clearly adept to the dark and like the shadows and stuff, you know. So I live in like caves and stuff that kind of like the Descent. You know, these things get deer and shit because they go out at night. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I figure too. They're mostly implying that they're just more prone to nighttime, but the way they word things makes it sound like they shouldn't be able to, like they're vampires or something. Like I don't know the way that they specifically say something, and maybe the way they have to work with limitations of lighting in general, like I don't know, it makes it kind of tough.
Yeah, Ace is talking about that similarity stuff. I've never dug into YouTube to see contrast and comparisons, but it was funny. Like me and Ricky were talking like a week ago about this, and it's like coincidentally, Christopher Lee as Saruman and as Count Dooku, they both played these kind of like idealistic characters falling prey, you know, to their own folly, their own idealism of like, well, let's like side with the enemy for either to like this idea of like, well, we'll like sneak in amongst them and, you know, do what's good in the end, despite whatever bad we need to do to get there. It'll in the long run it'll pay off. You know, it's kind of like the folly of both the characters.
Yeah, Dooku being a former Jedi and wanting to leave because of the politics and everything, and wanting to be different, and then you know, like, hey, there's a bad guy here. Can you guys help? No, okay, you know, whatever. I guess I'm still not agreeing with y'all. And then Saruman, you know, was the head of the wizards, and he's like, wow, they're really strong. Yeah, we're all fucked. Let's get our beds ready. So instead of our graves, let's try. And
I wish they would have did something with the Seeing Stone more. They show it like this way he's communicating with Sauron, but
So you mean the Plantier?
yeah, I wish they would have done more
The
with
sphere,
that.
yeah. No, I agree. I think that even though they use it more in the extended editions, I wish they implied those more, especially when Denethor has one as well.
Okay, so maybe that's like corrupting him or something.
That is part of that is supposed to be part of the corruption. So part of his story is like his wife died at some point, and
was it because of Faramir?
I don't remember if it was because of
Faramir.
Maybe, but his wife's death, and he's got the Plantier, and so he's like getting corrupted along the way with all this stuff, and there's constant war across Osgiliath, and his sons are charged to do it, and part of that is like corrupting him, and then he just kind of takes it out on Faramir for the most part, but still loves Boromir with it, and you see there's a moment or two, there's a couple of moments where he's just like, Faramir, my son, I like this if I love you real quick, but then he kind of snaps back into, oh, fuck you, you stupid, whatever. Or, when he's like, my son, it's like that's Denethor that we didn't get to see really because he has been so corrupted and crazy. Like when Boromir was trying to get the ring from Frodo and then he snaps back, he's like, I'm sorry, he's like, dang it, it's funny how each of, like, almost all of them have like another side to them when they do that, and then they snap out of it and they're like, whoa, I'm back to normal now. What the hell? Like, it's really like the temptation's just too much for them. Like he says, I mean, similarity in terms of things like Sauron, Sauron being a fallen character that became the second Saruman, second Dark Lord, his master, and the dynamic between Vader and Palpatine.
Dude, that Mauler video, I watched a good chunk of it with breaking down that guy's Lord of the Rings criticism, and it's like, what was this guy like?
Yeah, so it's so haunting.
It was so like I could see people like
cinematic
not liking
venom.
It. I could see people not liking it, or it's boring to them. I'm like, okay, it's not your cup of tea. You don't like slow burn like payout, even though there's stuff escalating throughout the whole thing. It's not just only walk for 9 hours.
He's like, oh, there's no character, and I don't care.
That's like the worst oversimplification of a movie.
Did you watch the whole thing?
I've probably watched at least half of it.
Man, because when he gets to Return of the King, like, I'll just tell you, I'll spoil it for you. He says the dumbest thing ever, which was like Gimli when he says, let him stay there, let him rot. Why should we care? He was like, what the fuck? You spent 3 movies trying to save him, and now you don't care. All of a sudden, now what the hell? And then later you saying like you do care. Like, he's saying that that Gimli wanted Frodo to die. He thinks that's what Gimli was saying.
Wait, when was that? When Gimli says that?
So when after Minas Tirith is free, Gondor is free, and the armies of Mordor have retreated, and they're deciding what to do. They're trying to talk to each other. He's like 10,000 orcs now stand between Frodo and the ring. Or between Frodo and Mount Doom, and Sauron's forces are all there, and then he's like, let him stay there, let him rot, why should we care? Like, he's referring to the amount of he says something
about Sauron, right? Like,
I think he said, I think that the line of dialogue was that they're all his forces have are all behind the Black Gate, and he's like, let him rot, why should we care? And he says, because 10,000 orcs now stand between Frodo and Mount Doom. And it's like, with the context, he's obviously referring to all the freaking orcs and the army. He's like, Frodo and Sam. He's not saying let Frodo and them rot. They're trying. The whole point is they're trying to destroy the fucking ring, and he knows it, and he likes them. So why would he say?
No, I never watched that thinking.
Nobody ever watched it thinking. He wants Frodo.
He was there at the Fellowship. Like
nobody ever watched it thinking he wants Frodo to die. Only Cinematic Venom has thought this. Only Cinematic Venom has thought that. And
such a horrible take. What an
wow.
Idiot. Like, just so much of like, nothing happens. And like, what was the point of this scene with the mirror in Lothlorien and Galadriel? It's like, what? It was, oh man, like, yeah, I want to do some EFAPs now.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? And it's like when you really get it. That's what I like about EFAP, because they break down those. A lot of the videos they cover are videos that people would normally just watch in full and just kind of think about what was said, but not really. They're going to forget a lot of things because they just watched the whole thing and not nonstop. But when you can stop and rewind and play it again and everything, it's like, well, what did you just say here? Well, what does this?
Yeah,
What does this mean? What does
I'm
this mean?
I'm almost halfway through there, because I saw a meme or someone like screenshotted it where it's like talking about like, yeah, incels, they're comparing someone's take to like Mahler and company EFAPing for 11 hours, Jenny Nicholson's video. And it's like, I'm like watching it for days. I'm like halfway through it. And it's just like, yeah, I mean, some of it's just tangential. Some of it's the chat, like the whole Jeb Bush joke.
The entire critique time that they do on her video is about 3 hours.
But it's like, yeah, there's a lot to break apart with like her own inconsistencies reviewing like Joker, or like that Venom guy doing Lord of the Rings, where it's like, oh, did you not watch? Like, can you not put two scenes together and get what's happening? Like, it's so mind-boggling. It takes a long time to actually break it down, especially when you got a couple guys in the chat.
Yeah, it's like you're really trying to figure, and you're trying to explain it. Like, when he says, this is a good sword, he's like, that's such a stupid line. It's like, I don't like saying and blah blah blah. It's like, what do you mean? It's obvious. What doesn't? He's not just saying at random like that's a rock.
Gonna have to fight Urukai, and insurmountable odds for this like ragtag group of like refugees huddling in a fucking like trap.
Yeah, there's
city.
less than 1,000 men are gonna fight 10,000 orcs. Yeah, it's a Urukai. It's like, dude, like he's saying this is a good sword, and he swings it himself, and he's like, bolstering the kid. It's obvious, even if it's not true. Like, even if the sword sucks.
Yeah, I've always growing up watching this. I've always questioned, like, wait, does he actually think? Because it's like, all right, he's twisting it stuff, and like clearly it's like dented up shit. But maybe he's like, all right, it's got a good balance. Like, I've always like yo-yoed before like really kind of coming to a conclusion. Like, oh yeah, he's like because like you just see these little like physical language that he has where he's like, fuck, like you can kind of see the doubt, but he's like trying to like pump this kid up, like, yeah, it's a good sword. And it's like, maybe he's not lying if it was like, prepped well and cleaned and resharpened and stuff, but it's clearly like dented and beat up.
Yeah, they're literally trying to grab every piece of weaponry they can to try to.
And he's wearing like ill-fitted armor because he's not like grown yet.
Yeah, exactly. They don't exactly make armor for kids. So.
And you see, it's like, the whole like, there's either most of these have seen too many winners or too few. They're just old men and kids fighting, and they're not well prepared.
Yeah,
and
they're farmers, old men, kids, and almost none of them are warriors.
They've been ransacked on the caravan to there by the wargs, so a lot of their warriors have already been killed defending the people. And like, yeah. And okay, here's the interesting thing. Like, I've always appreciated King Theoden, both for like the meme of like, you have no power here, but also the like every time I watch it, it's like, man, this is really like hitting the nail on the head. With like him and Treebeard, the Ents, reflect, I think, so much of like the disdain for war as Tolkien as a war veteran, while also showing like the necessity of it to like fight great evils. At least you could argue great evils, where it's like he's lost his own child. The king has no heir now, and like he's lost this, and he's trying to keep anyone else.
Well, he has a female heir, but I don't know if that counts. If a daughter counts at all.
Of course not. It doesn't count.
Right.
If anything, it'll be like a reluctant succession, and then it'll be a new lineage with the patriarchal system of like the new
the
king,
next one.
Siring through her, and so it'll be like tangentially related, but it's going to be a new,
which will obviously be Mary.
Yeah, it'll be a new dynasty. Or it'll be like some Queen of England shit where they just never have a king.
I'm gonna say just have Mary be it. Have him be the king now.
Yeah, but you see, he's like, what would you have me do? And everyone's like, war is upon you whether you'd have it or not. And he's like, okay, all right, well, let's fucking evacuate and go to our stronghold, and that should keep us safe. in the time being. And
yeah, no, I didn't really look at it as a parallel between him and Treebeard, but you're right. I mean,
they're both avoiding war for different reasons, but like Theoden has been, made a puppet by Saruman through Wormtongue in their meddling, and his negligence being under this ruse has cost him his son, and his lands are already ravaged by this growing war. And then like his full forces with Karl Urban out like 300 leagues away or whatever he says. And Treebeard has this like kind of libertarian view of like, well, it's not my war, it's not my problem. It's like, whoa, this shit affects you though. And Pippin and Merry get the idea like, oh, let's go to Isengard. And they tell him one thing, but it's really for him to see like, well, we know he's fucking ravaging the land. This will like totally change his view, because this will come. He's lost all these tree friends.
Yeah, and they'll just go further and further into the forest, taking more and more as they go. Yeah,
it'll just ravage the land, and he sees that and he's like, all right, wartime. Karen for prime minister.
Yeah, we'll vote for you, Karen. We'll vote for you.
Ace said that about like pulling from like probably pulling elements from Lord of the Rings world. And yeah, I've always said that George Lucas is brilliant because he's like the greatest plagiarist of all time. And I don't say it as an insult. I say that as like a huge compliment, that he was able to take all these unrelated epics and fantasies and the monomyth learning from Joseph Campbell and hybridize it in this like quintessential monomyth that's also in space. So it doesn't have any one culture in it. And so it's brilliant. No one can ever really touch that. But again, without Lord of the Rings as like a stepping stone, I don't think Lucas would know where to fucking start to like try to put this down, which he was already writing before Campbell, I think. So, but yeah, it's like that. His influence kind of helped him like have like a straight path narratively. And I definitely would like to see if Lucas ever talked about Tolkien. Kind of get some glimpses of like, oh, that
would be nice, especially with the new Lord of the Rings coming out. Tolkien's dead. That'd be interesting to hear George talk about
Tolkien. Yeah, I don't know the full context, but I saw this one clip where he's like talking about, I think, doing another trilogy at the time, and he's like, yeah, I don't want Star Wars to be Star Trek. And
good.
Like, and that, I think that was before JJ did Star Trek, so it's like, ooh, see how that went.
That's funny.
It's little shit like that I think, at least in part, he sold to Disney, having already dealt with them for years, knowing what they would do. Maybe not to his own stuff that he was selling them directly, like the sequel layout outlines, but I think he knew overall they would fucking, lose the total value of what this series is. And
look at how many people are clamoring for George to come back. George, come back, save us. He's like, check in, mate. But
he's like, I don't know. Miss me.
I don't know. But as far as, so like Treebeard, I don't think I've heard that many people comment on Treebeard and Theoden having the similarities of wanting to avoid war, essentially, and both have it, like both are forced to do it, essentially. I like when the Ents are talking and he's like, we take a long time to say things and we don't say anything unless they take a long time to say. And when he's like, are you part of this world, aren't you? And like the Ents are the Ents are looking at each other like, well, yeah, but we don't want to fight. And it's just like, you're the last batch of your species. Like, there's no more Ent wives, and who knows how long you'll live anyway. But are you gonna let everything that you have currently just be destroyed like this? Or are you gonna do something about it? It's just like, I don't know. I kind of like that aspect with the Ents.
There's this like fleeting detail I fucking love as like a little comedic gag where like that one gets hit with like flaming arrows and he just starts getting lit up. He's like, and then like Treebeard's like, release the dam,
Yeah, and then he goes and tries to.
And then that one tree's burning, just like they're all like, prepping for the pressure.
Yeah, he dunks his head into the water.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah. That was a nice detail.
Well, yeah, because they totally just like let you think he died, but they like made a point like, oh no, he's fine.
Yep, he's good.
Just a
He's
little
good.
burnt.
The orcs only took out like 2 Ents.
Well, it's funny 'cause that one they start like hacking them with axes. And
But I don't even know if they killed. I don't know if they killed it though because Treebeard saved them.
No, yeah. They start hacking. He like grabs one, and then Treebeard throws a fucking boulder, and it like knocks the other two. Like,
I feel like so many of the Ents ended up being kind of stupid. They're just throwing rocks at the tower. It's like, no, kill everyone else first that's trying to attack you guys, and then do that.
Well, there's one where like they throw a fucking to show you how like strong Orthonk is. They throw a fucking boulder at it and just like bounces off. Like, this is nuts. It's like old Ironsides in I think Civil War. It's this old ship. But it was like such strong wood that like cannonballs would just bounce off of it. It was like, you can't beat this ship.
Oh yeah, so yeah, you can't bring down the tower like this. Cute, but no. That's why I was like, it's so pointless. You're just throwing huge rocks and it's just bouncing off of it. Like, oh,
especially it's a tower for wizards. They probably enchanted it or built it with enchantments.
Something like that. Something like that. Yeah. Which is funny, but yeah, I freaking like that. And Theoden, man, Theoden's like, he's in the he's not even in the whole trilogy, but he gets so much character, and he's like he's like the king. He's what Aragorn in a way should be, like should inspire to be, I guess. Like he's taking action now. He's trying to rally mankind together.
He's a weary, reluctant warrior.
Like Aragorn got the army of the dead, but like Theoden united the army of the people.
I hate that detail with the whole army of the dead, like just how quick it's like, oh, now
I wish spirits. I wish
like,
it was hinted at.
Whatever.
I wish that it was, I don't know, alluded to more or something. Like there's more connection to that, because I don't even know who they were. I'm like, I didn't fully get who they were. They're like, oh, there was a time where Gondor needed help and they fucked off, and it's like, I don't know. I didn't see any of that. I don't get that part. Like, what? So they just fucked off and died in there, or like I don't know. Like, yeah, I feel like that's the type of thing where okay, they couldn't have another 20 more minutes of footage for this, so that makes sense. I get it, but I would have liked to see more fleshing out of that aspect as well.
Yeah, no, that's like the one detail I really hate in Lord of the Rings is not just that the good guys win. It's like, yeah, it's uplifting overall, and despite the tragedy to get there, but because I root for the dark side, but yeah, I just wish they would have like had more depth to them, because it's just a huge Deus Ex Machina.
It is. It helps them win the war. I mean, when Elrond comes there and tells them, he's like, you're all going to die. It's not just the army you're fighting that already outnumbers you extremely, but there's a whole other army coming from the south with pirates as well. It's like they're totally gonna fucking kill you. Like you're all like, you cannot beat that. And so yeah, I didn't get
why Aragorn didn't hold them to go to fucking see, this is the plot contrivance for me, at least watching it, is that he gets this undead army that just like boom, overkill. Like, and then he doesn't hold them to go to fucking Mordor. And it's like, oh, that would have come in handy.
He promised to. I think it's one of the sins of the father type of thing, where he's trying to avoid that. So he's like, I said I would hold your oath fulfilled if you help me here. So I'm going to release you now. But I think what would have been a better element than having them be ghosts is like if they were people that were also descendant from Isildur or something. Like they were amongst, like if they were amongst the like Isildur, I don't know, like village or clan or whatever the fuck, kingdom, I don't know, like they're part of the traitors essentially or something. They're part of the people that turn their backs on, like they all let humanity down. And if he was able to like find them himself, and like there's a huge mass of them, but they're all like hidden away themselves, and if he found this huge mass of them and is able to recruit them, like he still comes with his sword and everything. He's like, I'm the lineage, I'm the next guy, you guys, you guys can earn your respect back with mankind if you fucking help or something. And then have that army come in instead of it just be this wash over of, oh yeah, all this green light just kind of wins, which it's still fine, but it's not great. It's a lot less satisfying with it being ghosts just that flood over.
Yeah, because like they can't even fight back. Like you have the fucking Witch King of Angmar get stabbed by a girl in the face. And you can't have like any kind of like, all right, there's like, this is a little bit of work for us, even if we can overwhelm them.
I'm actually really confused too on like the Witch King's power level. like, because in their extended edition, I don't know if you've seen this part yet. He faces off with he faces off with Gandalf, really quick.
Destroys his staff.
He destroys. He has his fire. His sword turns to flame, and he destroys Gandalf's staff. And in my head, I'm going. So Gandalf the Grey was pretty much equal to the Balrog in power level, but was able to beat him. And now he's even more powerful as Gandalf the White. Aragorn pretty much, scared away the Witch King in the Fellowship, and now the Witch King destroyed Gandalf the White. The staff was almost about to kill him, and then Merry and Eowyn kill him. Like, I don't know. I'm just his power is really confusing to me. I don't get.
Well, it's like they're undead, they're wraiths, so it's like you'd think he would just recycle again, even because Aragorn burns them, and then Arwen fucking drowns them all, and so they come back later. You assume reborn.
Yeah, I don't get that. Yeah, I'm kind of confused.
Yeah, so Sister's like, wait, what? Like, what's the dynamic?
Does the water kill them, or just kind of make them go for a bit, and then they come back up? Like, I don't.
Yeah, I would have liked if they would have had.
You see one of them drowning.
It's the same problem in The Hobbit, where it's like, I haven't seen the extended editions of The Hobbit, so I don't know if they have more for this, but they have the Morgul blade or whatever that they look. I'm not lying. Sauron's coming back. He's the necromancer, and he's got that Morgul blade. And Sauron's like, oh, okay, I'll look into this. And that's supposed to be kind of a hint, precursor to where he ends up going in The Lord of the Rings and being.
He's like, we're fucked.
Yeah, turning and working with the enemy. They hinted that, and at least in the theatrical version of the films, they never touched that again. It's like, why?
True.
But yeah, I wish they would have had scenes of at least the Witch King communing with Sauron or something, some sort of, not just the seeing eye, all-seeing eye, directs everything. I would have liked seeing some communication where it's a little more depth. And that's one irritation I got, where it's you get that with Palpatine and Vader, where it's Supreme guy and his lackey and communes with them.
It's like that would have been cool to see Saruman with talking to Sauron or the Witch King. It's this is the thing. Lord of the Rings is so good and so in depth and fleshes out so much, but it's still you've got a thing of meat that's just really big. You got a whole cow, and you're so full eating so much
of that
of it.
Language, buddy.
And you got, I know,
trigger warning.
And it's dude, there's still so much left, and you're oh, I can't get to all of it. I'm sorry. So you have the little theatrical version that's long, but still
it's
very
Anchorman,
short. And then you have the extended version, and then that's still it's really
Not
long,
enough!
but there's still scenes. No, Angus, there's deleted scenes. So there's extended scenes, and there's also deleted scenes. There's a scene where
I assume that the extended edition was all the deleted scenes.
No. There's still a few extra nuggets. Angus, there's a scene where Eowyn or Arwen, I fucking get her name all the time.
Liv Tyler, Arwen.
Yeah, Arwen. She when they're in Helm's Deep and they do their charge, it cuts to her fighting off a few Uruk-hai in the caves.
Oh my god. See, I would have assumed, going back, watching these, and before I pieced together, oh wait, that's the same horse from the stable. I was crazy that you let go, and then just happened to find him. Maybe because he's talked Elvish to it, so it had some sort of deeper connection. I don't know, but I assumed it was, especially with his daydreaming of Arwen or something in his fugue state, that maybe Arwen had some influence on the horse and hey, I sense my lover is hurt. Find him, save him. That's how I always assumed the way they pieced that together. I was oh, it's some Elvis shit.
I mean, maybe the Elvis stuff is kind of meant to be we're not going to explain it very well, but they're magical-ish. So I was gonna say Elvis, Legolas. Legolas can see far away and see the red blood and crap, and he can walk on snow, and he's very light and can do all the stuff. But that's
fuck Legolas.
Yeah, your
him
favorite
and Gimli,
character.
they just get worse. Like the first movie, I'm like, yeah, I'm on board. They seem like pretty solid characters. They're kind of one dimensional, but they serve the purpose for their skill sets. And then 2 and 3, they just get stupider. And
No,
like,
I feel
fucking
like
hate
it's
them.
I feel like it's just lack of being able to flesh out everything so much. There's nothing more.
No, they give
like,
them moments where it's like, you know, like see, this is the
well, no,
thing where it's like
they
doing
become
for me, they're
comic.
doing comedic relief
Yes,
a little bit in the fight.
they are.
But
They are.
like, okay, the skateboard scene with the shield, a little too much for me. And it's like I let that scene pass, but it's like you're pushing it, and then the whole like, you know, oh, I got 19. He's like, what? And he's like 21, 22. And it's just like, oh, like whatever. These fucking ridiculous, insurmountable odd Uruk are just like folly, you know, like they're fodder, whack, whack, nothing. With like Gimli, it's like, fuck, this is silly. And you know, then 3, of course, with like the elephant scene would be fine. Then he fucking slides down the snout, and it's like, this is comical. Like, this is just stupid.
I mean,
you had them seem like elegant and cool, and you know, it's like you assume like elves are like light.
I would have liked him to have been at least more surprised that he was able to do that successfully. Like, whoa, I didn't mean to.
If he would have just like, you know, started down the tilt and then kind of like fell and like had to like stumble, but no,
he
like
could have done it. He could have done.
fluid.
He still could have done a cool landing. Just, you know, not as
It could
literally
have been like an Iron
Flintstones.
Man landing or something. Like he catches stuff like, whoa, that was crazy. You know, the whole like still counts as one. It's like, all right, you know, that's like a through line from 2. Okay, but the whole like counting that's the thing too is like you got like this kind of like tragic view of war, but then you have them being comedic with like, haha, I'm counting my kills. This is fun. It's like that kind of undermines the whole like
I don't feel like it
tone of
undermines
the war.
I don't feel
for
like it
me.
undermines it. Yeah, I don't feel like it undermines it. I feel like it's just the small moment, tiny moment of levity in the middle of it. Like, if it was just all dark and all like there's just no glimpse of joy in it, I feel like, I don't know, they're a
That's
moment
what the
of
hobbits are for. That's why
they're a
I'm
minute.
fine with the hobbits being silly because they're not even supposed to be in this. They're out of
No,
place.
but I don't know. I feel like both of them have seen so much war and battles, and they enjoy it. And the fact that, you know, they hated each other in the beginning, and, you know, become the best of comrades. Essentially,
I'll be right back. I'm gonna
Okay.
take this call real quick.
All right, that's cool. What's up, Tim's Talk? What's up, buddy? Hope that I don't know if you're still hanging around or not. Yeah, we're talking Star Wars and Lord of the Rings. We're just kind of diving into both categories back and forth here. We might do this type of conversation a little more often. I mean, he and I have already talked about this in private a little bit, and today we've pretty much not talked about anything we've discussed before. And like, this is like hours of stuff, just different elements and comparisons. And there's just so much freaking depth, man. I mean, there's still things that I need to figure out with both of these properties in a way. Like, I haven't listened to the commentary on Star Wars in forever, and I don't think I've ever seen the commentary for Lord of the Rings. And I want to look at the behind the scenes and the making of Lord of the Rings. I think I've seen some behind the scenes of Star Wars, but only a little bit. Only a little bit that gives some information of like what Lucas was thinking and whatnot. Especially these days, it's easier to find some of that information. But there's so many similarities and differences that, you know, set them apart. Like, there's a reason why these two franchises are freaking like one of the like 2 biggest ever, and probably will stand the test of time. I mean, I feel like you could show this to somebody, you know, over 50 years in the future or 50 years in the past, and they'd still freaking love it either way, regardless of knowing or understanding how they're able to make it happen. It'd still be pretty amazing, I would say. Yeah, Angus, I don't know how long the call's going to be. That, and there we go. There's the answer. Back already.
Yeah.
But no, I feel like Legolas and Gimli have, like, you know, their camaraderie, and I mean, yeah, they're counting, but it's like, I don't know. I don't like, Aragorn is always serious. Do you want to have both of them be just like Aragorn the whole time?
I'd be fine with that.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like, you know, the fact that like Legolas is the top class of all elves essentially, and same with Gimli, and they're able to have their own ways of working together with it. Like, I'm fine with them.
Well, they annoy
doing it
me
here and there.
Not just for like, for me, it's like I'm a pretty serious guy. Like, I like to be silly and stuff, much as possible. but I like serious stuff. Like I don't like comedy much because it usually just isn't funny to me. It's very hard for me to like find where I'm like, haha, that just killed me.
I mean, like, you didn't like when they're drinking against each other, and he's like, "Let's get hairy women."
That was fine.
And then,
that was fine.
and then he's like, "I feel a slight tingle in my fingers," and then like, Gimli
it's
just
like doing nothing to him.
knocks
Like
himself off.
Captain America or something. Like that was fine because it's like he's on a whole different plane. They're immortal, but yeah, the whole tone of like war from Tolkien, knowing where he's from, and multiple characters echoing probably his sentiments about war and the reluctance to do it, but the necessity, it just undercuts that for me. Even if it's meant to be like this kind of like moments of levity for the audience watching this, where it's not just a straight through dire, but like plenty of war films have that, and then have like these kind of tangential characters be like Full Metal Jacket was the one guy when they're going in for the first time on a mission, they got the chopper gunner just like mowing down fucking rice paddy pickers, and they're innocent, but he's like, whatever, they're all gooks, and he's getting a kick out of it because he's like, the whole thing is like showing you how like deranged war can make people. This one, it's like there's this whole kind of sense of dread and the like duty of fighting evil. And so for me watching that and understanding that overall tone, the levity of these characters just irritates me. And then also it's like you have elves come in, like a company of elves help at Helm's Deep. And they're all just getting massacred. You got like the leader that brings them in gets fucking killed. And then you got like Legolas has just got plot armor. Same with Gimli for the most part.
I do think that they could have suffered more damage throughout the movies. And
they feel like we talk about Rey, where it's like
they do come out
Rey
clean.
Gets cut.
I do.
They don't even get that.
I was say they do come out pretty clean. As to where Aragorn, at least, he comes out pretty bloody, tired, messed up. He seems like he's been through hell. It's where they seem like they could have walked out of the shower.
Yeah, it's not even the fact that like, okay, well, he's an elf and he's a dwarf, so they're kind of got more padding as a species in this world. It's like, all right, I get that to a point, but then you show like Moria was overwhelmed and they're all slaughtered, and then
the dwarves got killed. You see elves get killed.
Yeah, and then you see elves get slaughtered.
They're almost no different than men, and when you show that as well.
Yeah, it's like it's just a narrative inconsistency with stakes, and that's what irritates me. It's like they never, like, even if I understand that they're like main characters that are going to make it, they never present like Aragorn, where it's like, all right, they're at risk, they get tired, they're battle weary. It's just like, oh yeah, I'm in a battle.
With Legolas, there's moments where he like when he's like saying that you're all gonna die, pretty much. Like I wish there was more of that. I guess like that type of attitude that he has. And showing it on the battlefield, maybe, or like his own doubt a little bit. Even though he's really strong, and even though he's like one of the best top tier guys, but like if there was, he seems like everything he's doing is intentional, like completely, like without fail. That's what he meant to do. I do wish there was some aspect of like, like that actually worked or something.
He is probably the Mary Sue of Lord of the Rings. Luckily, he's not a main character. But yeah, he feels like, if I was gonna say like anyone's a Mary Sue in this, it's him.
Yeah,
that's probably the underlying why I don't like him. Like I like him in number 1, he feels believable. And the next two, it just feels like they just like whatever. He's an elf, he's super duper, and I hate it.
Yeah, I feel like in the first one there wasn't as much time to.
It's like Gimli gets saved
to have him not do anything. Yeah,
he gets the warg falls on him, and then he like snaps the neck of the orc, and then another warg comes up, and it's like, oh fuck, and then Legolas or someone else kills it.
Yeah, hold on. I'd say that sequence, I think that's fine, but when they're in Helm's Deep, I would agree. There's some moments where I'm like, okay, like when he gets trampled when he's in front of the invading army pouring through the wall. And you get stuck under the water. It's like, I kind of wish that wasn't there, because it's extremely lucky that you don't get hit by an arrow. None of the Uruk-hai kill you. You don't get trampled and killed. Like, you don't suffocate under the water that you're in. It's like, that's so lucky right there. Like, and I don't know, being in water and, when you're in the middle of battle like this and you have your armor, I feel like you'd be quite tired after that. And so I do wish that it was they'd show like when they're at least like cooped up in the corner trying to, before he blows the horn and they're talking about the charge. Like if he takes his helmet off or something and is like, seen being vulnerable, then like, okay, I've been keeping it strong this whole time, but I'm exhausted, guys. Like I'm not gonna charge with you. I'm tired. Like, something that shows that he is being battle worn now. I do agree. Even if they didn't show it throughout the rest of the battle, like that would be something. Yeah, I agree. That would at least, help humanize the dwarf.
Yeah.
But I don't know. But I'd say like I don't like in The Hobbit when they show the dwarves fighting. Like it just seems like a video game. Like, well, I'm just plowing through everybody.
Bonk, bonk. That's the problem with that book.
If you think that like Gimli and Legolas just blaze through in the Lord of the Rings, like so many characters in The Hobbit, that's all they do is just blaze through everything. I'm like, I feel no danger for any of you.
Oh,
at all.
No,
you're
exactly.
all fine.
That's
you're all fine. None of you are gonna die. You're fine.
that's like probably the biggest underlying problem with The Hobbit is that it's so wishy-washy with its tone, because it's hard. It's hard because The Hobbit was made before Lord of the Rings and it's for his kids in this world he was making and imagining, and so it's got like the intensity's turned down to like 2, but then it's like in the universe, and that's the problem. Is like, all right, you've already established this really I'd say like 95% just like straight well-crafted universe, and now you're adding the prequel story with the ring coming into the characters we know and that journey, and the follow through of like the assist with Bilbo with these dwarves to take the mountain, and at the same time it's like, well, this is like a kid's story, so we got to have all these like kid elements and the silly stuff with the dwarves, and it's like, fuck, it's such a slog to get through.
Like
Silly shit.
The water, like the wine barrels, when they fight the dragon, they're just like literally like a cartoon, just like sliding down chutes and melting things, and just everything's going on, and it doesn't do anything to the dragon in the end anyway, so it's all pointless, and just kind of like it seemed like it had no effect on him at all.
Well, the whole pointless aspect wasn't a problem, because it's like, well, they don't know that. They think this will fuck them up.
Well, I'm just saying.
Like,
no, I'm saying.
Yeah,
that,
actually, this did nothing.
No, my point is that constantly it feels like whatever they do doesn't matter all the time. Like nothing they're doing really affects anything. It's just happening. It just seems like stuff's happening because that's just what's happening now.
Yeah, like the shenanigans.
There's no weight. Yeah, there's no weight to any of it all. It's just all happening.
Like
when they're with the goblins, they're just running them over, sort of, and just in the way. And then when they're in the army's fighting, they're just plowing through stuff, and it's just like, I don't.
Yeah, no, it's totally all over the place with like trying to stay consistent with the established world we've seen, but also tell us like kid story and make that a strong element. And it's like they didn't know how to like make that concise. I think it was a big disservice that for whatever reason Guillermo del Toro wasn't the director for that trilogy. Peter Jackson. I think Peter Jackson should have been like the Lucas overseeing everything. Yeah. And Guillermo would be the guy taking over. The guy did Hellboy in Shape of Water.
Yeah.
Because I think it would have been a little more serious.
I think that would have been pretty good.
But you would have had the like Dave Filoni, Lucas like oversight of everything you're trying to develop.
Who directed The Hobbit?
Jackson.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's supposed to be Guillermo del Toro, but something didn't fall through with that. So it was supposed to be a 2-film series, but they made it 3. And so there's padding, and also like I wouldn't say there's just straight padding for the third movie, like to make it 3 long, but he was adding like more context for like all this stuff around from the appendices and
for The Hobbit or for Return of the King.
For The Hobbit, for like it's supposed to be a 2-film series, but they made it 3, and that's probably a Warner Brothers decision just to like mimic Lord of the Rings, get the most payout for it. But
well, you can refer to them as trilogies, the Hobbit trilogy and the Lord of the Ring trilogy or something.
Yeah, and like the whole like silly guy going in drag to hide and steal treasure.
You say silly guy. I was like, which one? I don't know which one.
And then there's
Yeah, that guy.
there's like the Lake Town guy that shoots the bolt at
Yeah,
which is from the book, I guess, but like just the whole like I don't care, just
those
like
felt so like in Lord of the Rings when they introduced Boromir, Legolas, and Gimli halfway through. It's like wow, you can kind of they start making their weight, like their presence, feel of some type of use, and they're in the story quite a bit, and it seems like it makes sense. And then with the Lake Town guy, yeah, I'm like, I guess he's around. I guess like I don't know. We go back to him sometimes. I don't care. And Legolas in The Hobbit too. I hated him in The Hobbit. It's just like don't like in Tariel. I think Tariel was an invented character. She's not part of the story at all. Just
I don't know if she's
invented.
invented or if they really extrapolated who she's supposed to be.
Well, from what I've heard from people that are Tolkien peeps, that she was not a character in the story. Like the character is created here. Like she wasn't another.
I'm just now reading
character.
Tim's second comment about the.
Yeah,
the
he says I
Hobbit
may
movies,
revisit Lord of the Rings, but the Hobbit movies, I don't know.
There's
yeah,
there's a lot I like in the Hobbit. Like rewatching, like okay, they're not as bad as I remember. Like the whole scene with him and Gollum in the cave getting the ring, that was really good. Azog
Smog
is awesome.
and him when he's there when
Smog
he's
in
first
number
talking
2.
to Smog, sure, yeah,
Yeah, that
that
whole
was good.
interaction with him and Smog was great. You know, the final fight with Azog, the war coming. There's a lot of good stuff, but then there's all this like silly shit where it's like, fuck this. God, take me back to just the
you miss Gimli and Legolas just doing
like,
stuff.
I'll take that. God damn, over all that slog shit.
It's like in comparison, that's like 1% of the Lord of the Rings
Yeah,
is
yeah.
those two, and then
Yeah,
in the
it's like, I'm
Hobbit,
just
that's like
irritated in Lord of the Rings.
70%.
This is like, oh my god. I'm like, you know,
Yeah,
pulling
the
my
Gimli and
rest of my
Legolas
hair
were
out.
Gimli and Legolas were cutaway moments for like a Family Guy thing, like real quick. Let's see what they're doing real quick. Funny. Okay, let's go back to this. And it's like, yeah, so it's divided. It's where the Hobbit is just all over the place. I felt no tension at all, and like the way that he talks up the head dwarf guy, I'm like, who is this at all? Like,
Talking about Thorin, Oakenshield.
yeah, I'm like, he's not in the following series. Bilbo is. And Gandalf and the other characters that are important. Who's this fucking dwarf? Like, was he one of the ones that got slain in Moria? No, I don't know.
I think when they're developing this, the Tolkien estate was like, yeah, you're not getting any more film rights, and so this is probably the other reason they did 3 films, just to like milk it dry.
I guess, but I feel like they could have done more with the milking if they wanted to.
But yeah, see, I don't quite understand the film rights stuff and Chris Tolkien dying and how it all works, because they're doing the War of the Rohirrim at Warner Brothers. So,
Yep.
which it looks pretty cool. The first like image they showed, and it's like, fuck, this is gonna be pretty cool. Hopefully, got a while for it to come out though. So,
Yeah, but I feel like you and I could probably pick up on this again sometime if you want to.
yeah, no, that's fine.
With some more Star Wars.
to Pete.
Yep.
ETEP.
Yep, Beady Boy. But yeah, I think that ends it for today. We'll see if Flip joins us next week. I'm not sure. We shall see. We're going to be on the Beady Beef tomorrow, All American.
Yeah, with
And-
Tabitha.
Yep, indeed.
That'll be fun.
Hell yeah. And yeah, I got nothing else to say. What about you?
No, just come by tomorrow on my channel and